What's up, everybody? It's John Esser in plain sight, and this one's been eating at me for a while. So I hope you guys stick with me on this one because I think we can all agree this one needs to be talked about. It's by the title you can tell it's Kobe Bryant, the controversies regarding his death, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to go a lot into the numbers because this is another one. Whenever they do ritualistic sacrifices, which what I do believe this is, there's numbers just like anything else. They have very specific numbers that you see come up over and over again. And it's not just regarding his demise, but it's also regarding his career and his rise. So a lot of it's double meanings. And remember, Gematria is not just numbers. They do use it with words, double meanings, things of that nature. So yeah, I hope you stick with me for the whole thing. First, I'm going to go into the common sense reasons that I do believe that this man was targeted. First was not even trying to pay attention. I realized the complete lack of coverage this guy got. Nothing against, say, Sean Taylor, who was a great athlete, but he got weeks and weeks of coverage and memorials and highlight reels and everybody saying how it was too soon. And here you have Kobe, a guy who did so much for so many people, and you get like a 3-hour, 1-day memorial service, and then he rarely gets talked about besides that. I think that raised a lot of eyebrows, and right off the bat, I thought something was up. If you look at the speeches that were given, his wife doesn't seem very crushed. Nobody really seems sincere. Sure, there's people crying, and I do think that some of them were sad. But again, it's the nature of the business. Shaq is an open Freemason. He displayed it on TNT. These people do get sacrificed, whether it be their careers or whether it be their lives. So I do believe that based off of the way they acted, this was not a normal circumstance. If you notice, they'll say things like he was killed in a helicopter crash, not he died in a helicopter crash. It reminds me of when they went after Jordan's dad, but nobody seems shocked. It's just nobody really seems, when this is happening, I'm talking about, they didn't seem like they should be acting. This guy did not get the proper send-off, and it's because, and then this is, just what I believe, and I'll go into it, he was going to start his own shoe company. I think Mambasita was going to be the name. He was going to take on Nike, and I do believe he was going to take a lot of money out of their pockets because he had good intentions. He was able to travel the world, unlike a lot of players. He started internationally, so he saw things, and he was able to do things that other players weren't. Other players, they can't speak on matters in other countries. They can't speak on China. They can't speak on those things because they are brought up in the NBA system, and they're told what to say and how to think. But with Kobe, he was not supposed to be as good as he was. I mean, with Shaquille O'Neal, it could have really been anybody from their mindset, and that Lakers team would have been fine. Kobe was just, I guess, stubborn, whatever you want to call it, resilient, and I want to say he took on the machine. Now, there are instances where I think things went his way. For example, and I'm going to start getting into the numbers because they do play a role. The number 20, obviously, he died in 2020. And 20 years prior to that, they beat the Kings in 2002. So that's an inverse, right? 2002, you got 2020, it's inside out. And it's almost unanimous that was the biggest screw job in the history of the league. Nobody, even in the league, will tell you that it was not. So again, it goes both ways. I think Kobe knew what was going on, but I think he tried to fight it. My point is, 20 is a big number, because 20 years ago they beat the Kings in a very, like I said, contentious and controversial series, becoming the next guy after Jordan to get a three-peat. So that was an extremely important finals that he won 20 years ago. Now he dies in 2020. And what's interesting about that is, again, LeBron James passed him the night before he dies. And what did passing him do? Well, it made him number 2, so 0-2. It's another inverse of 20. He became the second all-time leader. Now, I'm going to jump around a bit because what's interesting is if you watch the outfit Kobe is wearing on that night, I only seen him wear that exact outfit like one other time, and it was, I believe, months apart. It was when he was at the Dallas at Lakers game, and he was heckling Luka. And that's what I'm getting into next, is who I think he was sacrificed for. He was there, basically said a couple things to Luka. He had the exact same outfit as he did when he was at the LeBron James game. Difference was when he was with LeBron, he gave him a congratulatory hug. When he was with Luka, he was all smiles. It's like he actually wanted to be there more so than he was forced to be there. So he's there with Luka, and of course Luka is supposed to be the next number 41, right? The next number 41 for the Mavericks. And that number is the one that is just all over the place. So we know that he died at the age of 41. Some people know things such as his last shot. He shot the last shot he took was 4.1 seconds on the clock. Have you ever heard of a guy named Trey Lyles? Me neither. I never heard of him until I started looking into Kobe and realized he was the last guy that Kobe took a shot against. His number happens to be 41. Now that in itself I could chalk up to a coincidence. What I can't chalk up to a coincidence is the first man to inbound a ball after Kobe's death. This is years after Kobe's last shot. Was none other than Trey Lyles, number 41, on a different team this now. Now he's on the Spurs. So for him to have been a part of Kobe's last shot, when I think he was on the Nuggets or whatever team, I think it was the Nuggets, might have been the Jazz, and now he's on the Spurs, number 41, inbounding the ball after Kobe's death. And that's what the role players do in the league. They play their role. If it's as simple as inbounding a ball, but they have to be quiet about it. And that's why you see some of these players last 10, 15 years when others that are way more talented can't make it 5. So there's some of the 41s. A couple more 41s that I found interesting. He made that last shot, his last career shot he made with 41 minutes. He was in the game for 41 minutes at that point. And then I look at his birthday, which was 4/13, January 13th. I'm sorry, April 13th. So for me, it's just, and I'm sorry, I meant his first game. But for me, it's just too many, again, 41s, and then you see a lot of 13s in there as well. And then what I found very interesting is the last game before he died was in Philly, which is his hometown. It was Lakers-Philly, of course. It was the game that LeBron passed him. And sure enough, the last game on the following day, so the day that he died, was the Blazers. So the only team really, you got the Heat, I guess, associated with fire. They beat I forget who they beat. I think they beat the Magic, but they were the last game. They won the game after his death. And again, his hometown team playing the Lakers, his 20-year franchise team happened to play the last game before his death. And then there's a couple other things I found quite interesting. So there is a specific, I was trying to remember the guy's name, I think it's Kent Bazemore. There's a specific highlight, you'll find it, just it's Bazemore fouls James, and LeBron gets fouled, and this was on December 6th, so 126. He gets fouled by Kent Bazemore, so KB, same initials, number was 24, and when he gets fouled, he rolls over to his back, and his eyes just go out, like worse than Devin Booker did on Luka. This is like he was acting like he was dead. He does the Kobe tongue thing, and then he gets up. And again, you can say it's a coincidence, but again, everything has a double meaning. Why were they targeting Kobe? Shoes. Well, what are, tongues, right? Tongues are in shoes. And they do these little double meanings, and trust me, they aren't coincidences, but it is funny that 126 is the day Kobe was attacked, died, and 12/6 is the day that LeBron pulled this stunt. The only time I've ever seen him do anything like it, too, in a Lakers uniform nonetheless. there's a few other things I noticed. There's actually a commercial showing him exploding in a helicopter crash, joking about how he's not passing, right? They asked him to pass his rings or something, and he's like, pass, and then the helicopter explodes. Well, what is pass a euphemism for? Dying, right? Passing, dying. Torch. Which torch? It's a flame, right? I mean, it's right there in our faces. So you get the Blazers, you get the fact that, he's passing the torch, and he dies, he passes in a torch flame, if whatever you want to call it, helicopter crash. He died of burning. So again, all of these things just adding up, and then, being a coincidence, I don't think is possible, especially with somebody like Kobe. Now, the good news is, there's two pieces of good news. One, I do honestly believe that they wanted him to pass the torch to James a long time ago, and he didn't. Because, like I said, I think he did try and fight the system. I think he wound up passing the torch to Luka. I think he gave Luka everything he knew on whether the inside and outside of the business, told him what to look out for. And I think that's why he made a point of wearing the exact same outfit to Luka's games that he did to LeBron's game. I think they wanted him to pick a guy, and he picked the guy he wanted. Luka's not the chosen one. LeBron is. And they probably had someone else in mind after him. It might have been Giannis. But you could tell Luka was never really the chosen one. Now, another thing that I think is a piece of good news is Kobe was incredibly intelligent. So I do think there's a good chance he knew he was being targeted, and there's a good chance that he could have faked this. They never found bodies. And I know it sounds crazy, but I mean, if you're with me this far, then it can't sound too crazy. But let me just go over, the reason I didn't go crazy with the numbers here is because I hope you follow along in the description, because that's where all the numbers are going to be. For me to remember all of these numbers without going, back and forth with my papers, and with not really having editing skills, it would just take forever. So for now, I wanted to get out basically the gist of everything, which is this guy was targeted, in my opinion. They throw the comms out there in our face, the Lyles, being the last guy, and then the first guy, the Blazers being the last game, and then his hometown team being the first, the last one the day before he dies. It's right when James passes him. All these things added up, and then just watch the memorial. Watch how Michael Jordan reacts. Watch how his wife reacts. Watch how any of them react. And then going further, a couple days before this, he put out a video saying, I'm sorry I can't be with you, essentially, but always fight for your dreams and never give up and never back down. I mean, you don't just put out that speech every day. He specifically put it out, which tells me he knew something was in the works. So I'm going to be going in way more depth into these what do you want to call them, gematria, comms, symbolism. Once I am able to edit more, because then I'll be able to, everything that I might forget, I'll be able to get in there. But I do want to get the gist out, because I think a lot of people are seeing coincidences, and it just, not making sense to them. And I think, like I said earlier, I said 413 on birthday. I meant final game. But the fact of the matter is you're seeing the 4-1 over and over again. And then you're also seeing the 20, in my opinion, you see all over and over again. And just the fact that in his final game, he, with 4.1 seconds left, 41 minutes in the game, he shoots a shot over number 41. That same number 41 happens to come to the Spurs and be the first guy inbounding the ball after Kobe dies. Oh, and by the way, he was in the helicopter for 41 minutes. These things at some point, they are no longer a coincidence. And, I covered it in my Steph Curry video. I said they use these numbers. They shot 41.3%. I mean, the Warriors just shot 41.3%, and Kobe's last game was on 4-1-3. And the year after that, LeBron won in a Lakers uniform, and then that's 2020. Kobe played 20 years. These numbers would not just be popping in my head and in all of our heads, if you're reading articles and you're seeing, if they weren't there on purpose. For Steph Curry, the number is 13. I went over that. Kobe's, you can tell, the number 14 and 41, the inverse of it come up all the time. And then just more evidence, in my opinion, that they viewed him as somebody to get rid of is the nickname. Now, you can say he came up with this on his own, but Mamba is toxic. In the Bible, it's a serpent. You know, all snakes are bad. What's LeBron's nickname? King James, very biblical. What's Chris Paul's nickname? The Point God. You give these people very righteous nicknames, but you give Kobe that of a snake. So, again, he embraced it because he saw Mamba as something else. But they saw him as a snake. And he's not the only one, but I do think he was the greatest threat to them and the greatest player that didn't completely buy into the blood sacrifice. So I know it sounds nutty, but again, if they wanted, the same players would win every single year. And I just wanted to go into kind of scratch the surface on Kobe, and a lot more is going to be in the description regarding the numbers, the Gematria. So you'll be able to see it, pause when I'm going over it, and you'll be able to see that it's not just a couple times, it's dozens of times you're seeing these numbers. I hope you stuck with me and enjoyed this. If there's anything else specifically you want me to go into, please let me know. I didn't want to make this too long, and I didn't want to ramble, but I did want to make sure I covered most of the important things regarding, you know, all the numbers and symbolism with Kobe. Thank you guys, and I look forward to continuing going down the rabbit hole.